All right, we have a time certain at 10:30 for our turnaround schools reports. I think, well, we have 3 minutes. Let me just check and see if they're here. I'm trying to see who's doing this report. Tracy, are the people here to do this report now, even though we're a couple minutes early?
Thank you. Let me just double check.
I see a thumbs up right there by Aaron Wilson. He gave us a thumbs up. So Tracy, I'll go ahead and turn this over to you.
Very good. Thank you so much, Board Chair. We are excited to have the turnaround school reports. And according to 53E-5-3038 and 53E-5-30411, there is a requirement that the local school board members or their designee report their progress, their turnaround school efforts. And we have 5 schools that will be presenting with us here today from various stages in their turnaround process. And that will include Redwood Elementary, James Madison Elementary, Utah International Charter School, Holt Elementary School, and Paradise Canyon Elementary School. And we'll start off then with Redwood Elementary School, and I believe Max Lang will be running our slides.
Thank you, Tracy. Before we get those up, just a reminder, we have 5 minutes for presentation and then about 8 minutes for board members if you have questions on each one.
Excuse me, Board Member Belknap, I just need to be given permission to share my screen.
I think you were just made a co-host.
Okay, good deal.
Thank you. Okay, Max, your screen is black, so. Jerry, do you have any help here?
Unless I can see his screen. Max, are you in the building?
I wonder if he has lost connection. We still have his picture up. Tracy, would it be possible to go to Paradise Canyon if they have their presentation ready? Or is Max running that too?
Yeah, we have scheduled for Max to be able to present all of those shows from one computer. I apologize. I will see if I can get a backup copy here.
Okay, so why don't we work on that? And while we're doing that, why don't we just take a quick 5-minute break so everyone can just take 5 minutes. We will come back at 10:36. Thank you. and do whatever we needed. So that was actually a good little break, and appreciate Jeff and Tracy and the rest of you figuring this out. So Tracy, we'll go back to you and we'll start there with the presentations.
Very good. Jeff Van Holten has been able to access the slides. However, we still need Max to jump on. He's got James Madison and Paradise Canyon. Those are videos that I don't know have been uploaded. So he's continuing to restart and reconnect. He had kind of a freeze out on his machine. We apologize. But we'll start off then with Redwood Elementary. And I know that we have Aaron Wilson here to help lead us through that process. Thank you.
Thank you, board. And thank you, whoever is running the slides. I think I'll do what my 8th grade history teacher did in junior high. There is a beep before you advance the slide. So I'll make some sound, I suppose. But board, thank you for the opportunity to present on Redwood Elementary. I'd like to send our regrets from our board president, Granite Board President Winder. She and other board members were unable to attend this meeting. All 8 of our high schools are having their high school graduation today, which is very exciting, but made their schedules unable. So I'm the designee for our LEA. I'm Aaron Wilson. I oversee Title I schools and turnaround. And thank you for this time. We could go ahead and advance to the next slide. The goals that were set when Redwood Elementary was designated as a turnaround school was, in essence, to increase the proficiency of students that would make us eligible for exit, which recall at the time was to increase student proficiency on summative assessments so that the school improves by 1 letter grade. Our anchor strategies, or Redwood's anchor strategies you see below, is having 75% of students make average growth on the DIBELS assessment. Second, having 75% of students show proficiency on their 3rd formative assessment and in mathematics, but for designated math priority standards. And then the 3rd anchor strategy was that Redwood would implement a school-wide expectations for its positive behavior intervention and supports plan, and training teachers on trauma-informed practices. And so we'll go ahead and advance to the next slide. Thank you. And speaking to progress on their goals, I'll do so, and each column speaks to, in blue, some achievement data that's represented in a graph or other specific information on the next slide. So I'll allude to that graph and then we'll show you in the next slide. And then in the black text, I've described some implementation data, which we go into further depth on slide 5. So speaking to the growth in DIBELS, you'll see some comparative data comparing the middle of the year from last year to this year. And among 6th grade levels, 5 of the DIBELS scores went up, and many of that, the growth in the grade levels was significant. And it's measured by percent of students in each grade level who showed typical or above typical growth in their pathways to progress. Kindergarten, for example, went up from 16% to 39%, 1st grade from 33 to 53, 2nd from 29 to 48. So there were some impressive gains. The 3rd grade, as we know, went down, but I speak to that as that scenario more in their implementation successes. It's impressive to see some implementation data that speaks to sustaining DIBELS growth, targeted interventions for students not meeting their average typical growth, summer remediation, and then fidelity to research-based practices. Some of those are named below. Speaking to their progress in their math priority standards, the math preliminary RISE data, district-wide and I assume statewide, we see some effects of the pandemic on particularly math. And we believe that had not such good things been in place, we would have seen a sharper decline. And so I'll show you some of the scale score growth and where we're at there on the next slide. But speaking now to some implementation strengths, the teachers were well trained in identifying and building instruction and assessment around priority math standards, using some instructional design to incorporate flexible student grouping for targeted still instruction and remediation. And then 3rd, some impressive vertical teaming supports that provide continuity of priority standards as students progress throughout the school. And then in terms of their how they're increasing systems to support positive behaviors, we've seen a significant decrease in major and minor behavior referrals. Teachers are well trained on student-centered approaches for learning and supporting behavior. and then their behavioral expectations are set consistently and taught reinforced school-wide. Well, let's please advance to the next slide, and I'll show you some visualizations of these data. Here we see in the top left some of the DIBELS growth, and again, this is comparing middle of the year growth from last year to this year. And then in the implementation, I'll speak to we've seen third grade go down, but then after some concerted targeted effort based on these data, we see them having the greatest POP score from middle of year to this end of year. Talking about the math priority standards, what I think is noteworthy is charting student growth by student by standard. And then you see here preliminary RISE results showing scaled score from the last time it was measured, 2019 to this spring. And the scale scores did go down, and those tend to go up after house rules are applied with students, after the state applies some house rules. And so we wanted to note that in the 2 years and the pandemic in between, the scale scores did go down slightly, but I believe strong implementation data show that we'll rebound soon. And then you see the effect of positive behavior interventions in place by decreasing both major and minor referrals. So let's go ahead and advance to the next slide, and I'll speak to some implementation strengths, knowing that my time is almost up. So implementation successes, first, I note an alignment between the identified power standards in each grade level and the family engagement efforts. That strong tie-in and vertical alignment has led to parent engagement activities, building parents' capacity in assisting their children's learning, honing in on these power standards written in parent-friendly language. Second, a data-driven approach to intervention and alignment of resources. Recall that we found that third grade team, their middle of the year DIBELS growth was lower than all other grade levels. And so because there's a data-driven approach, the leadership team recognized that we really needed to galvanize support around this grade level. Coaches provided additional support facilitating targeted instruction groups. And as a result, the student group went from low 20s for POP growth and ended and closed that much of that gap from middle to the end of the year, from 20s to the 50s on POP score. So that's reflective of the data-driven approach to intervention and alignment of resources. And then you can see other implementation strengths, which I'll read as third, the administration engaging in monthly observation protocols with teachers, providing coaching to build their capacity, shift in leadership team practices to build capacity of team leaders. And that was reflected in them incorporating implementation science in those meetings that are data-driven, tracking progress of school goals and making adjustments as needed. I've attended a majority of the school's leadership team meetings and seen a lot of growth even within this year. Fifth is professional development taking place based on student data, being teacher-led in many instances and focused on teachers' instructional needs based off of observation data that the principals and coaches collect. Next, school-wide morning routines embed practicing and reinforcing student behavioral expectations, leading to the decrease in referrals. And then the lower grade teachers train in the evidence-based practices with fidelity, helping especially the younger grades meet their goals. Teacher PLCs being instructionally focused, centered on priority standards, and monitored by administrations, and then the outcomes measured by CFAs. And then the last implementation, a success to highlight, is the instructional coaches, where once they weren't integrated into the PLC process and systems, now they are helping teacher teams review data, identify interventions, and assist in implementation of desired outcomes. Let's go ahead and advance to the last slide. Thank you. There were little implementation challenges before the onset of the pandemic, and you'll note, board, that the implementation challenges we are facing now are fairly specific and a result in some way or another to COVID, where PLCs were very high functioning. We've had pandemic-related constraints that have reduced PLC time, affecting their PLC's abilities to jointly review students' data by student by standards and CFAs. Second, we note that administrators' monthly observation protocols with teachers have been hindered due to COVID-related issues. Third, and then in spite of every reasonable effort being made, some distance learners have disengaged in the learning process and widening learning gaps in that student, that population that's selected to do distance learning. Fourth and finally, board, is the pandemic loss. We found that's especially hit our younger grades, where they didn't have the same modality of instruction from March to May 2020. And that's the time allotted. Those are the things I wanted to highlight, and thank you for that time, and very happy to answer questions.
Aaron, thank you so much for your presentation. Let me just see. I don't see any hands at this time. Oh, I do. Board Member Cannon.
Thank you. I believe I've been in contact with Mr. Wilson before. He was formerly an outstanding principal at Granite Park Junior High School. Did a great job there. I have just a couple of questions. I believe that turnaround schools have an expert that they hire to come in and help them. Can you tell us who that expert is and what kind of help you've gotten from them?
Good, thank you. And so the vendor chosen for Redwood Elementary was EdDirection, and the designee that especially helping that school is Katie DeWald. The school has felt very positively about the support that they have received through EdDirection, and particularly in terms of providing an outside lens to kind of marry the audit findings of ways to instructionally improve and to operationalize that within a school system. The feedback I've received from the administration staff and teachers is the approach has been helpful in building on current strengths and then taking gradually to continual improvement. So in summary, I would say a very helpful outside system lens, being a critical thought partner in improving practices and changing the way that the principal supports teachers, the ways that they look at PLCs and leadership teams, and other facets as well. But those are, I think, some high-level areas that EdDirection is assisted with the school.
Okay. Follow up, please.
Yes.
And how? So Redwood Elementary has been in turnaround since cohort 1, and so that's a few years. How long has EdDirection been working with you?
They were an original vendor. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Cannon. I don't see any other questions, Mr. Wilson. Thank you so much for your presentation today. And so we'll go on to the next presentation. Tracy?
That brings us to James Madison, and I'm just checking in with Jeff Van Holten if he has that queued or if it'd be best if I show the presentation. And there he goes. Thank you so much, Mr. Van Holten.
And who's presenting today?
Julie Nielsen will be the principal, and I'm actually not sure the board member. Let me get that information. Thank you.
So Julie, are you on and ready?
It looks like we have. I sure am.
Oh, that will be great. So if you want to introduce who's here with you, then we'll move on.
Yes, so I have our wonderful board director, that's not the right word, board president with us, Jennifer Zindel. Is right. I also have Superintendent Nye, Assistant Superintendent Chad Carpenter, and I also have Executive Director of Equity and Access, that's a mouthful, JM, with me as well. And I also have some UEPC representatives too. So Corey, I saw her on here, and I saw Janet. So a whole team of people. It's great.
Thank you. You may go ahead.
I can begin? Sorry, I'm just hearing people getting cut off. So,
oh, yes,
all right.
please.
So go ahead and all right. You can go ahead and move to the next slide if you can. So, Julie Nielsen, the principal of James Madison Elementary School. If we go to the next slide, is that me who does that, or is somebody turning for me?
They're moving it.
Just for clarification.
They are moving the screen for you.
Okay, perfect. So you can go, oh, perfect. We have 4 foundational standards for school turnaround. So if you kind of scroll up, the 4 of them that we've been working on this year is high expectations for students, analyzing and disaggregating our data, working on having really solid evidence-based instruction, and of course, differentiated professional development. So if you go to the next slide, I'm going to then talk about each one briefly. Our first goal of having high expectations for students this year, we've really been working towards having strong depth of knowledge levels of questioning. We used COSTA's levels this year for our students. Integrated with that is also helping our students use academic language appropriately and also being able to explain their thinking. So I actually have a video here of about 10 seconds long of a student who is explaining his thinking, doing exactly what we were working to do. So if you can play that, that'd be great. Are you able to, if not, we can just move on.
I don't
Okay,
see a link here, Julie.
Okay, no worries, no worries.
Okay.
I'll just tell you what he said. So pretty much the little guy, he just said, why is 10 not a digit? His answer was, well, 10 has two numbers in it and digits are 9/8.
I believe we have lost Julie.
I am so sorry. I'm glad I'm back on. So I'm back. So we move on to this is our second slide. So our second goal, of course, was working on data-informed instruction. So disaggregating or using data to inform our instruction. With that, the biggest thing that we really was working towards, we really changed our collaborative team meeting structures. And in our collaborative team meetings, we worked on improving, looking at having daily exit tickets that informed our instruction. Every day after looking at that, teachers would then the next day do some reteaching. And then, of course, we were also looking at reading for our younger grade students, getting our students to be able to be fluent readers. And you can kind of see some data there. You can see our first and second grade teachers in that picture. And I asked them, so what was your experience with doing this? And they said, focusing on the big rocks is like really helped them to create better lessons. So you can see the growth that we've made with those based on that decision. Our next goal, so if we can scroll to the next slide. There we go. Yep. Okay. Our next goal, if we can keep scrolling all the way down, is having evidence-based instruction. So working on really having strong instruction there. What the pictures I wanted to show you is we wanted students to be able to explain their thinking. And we have two students here who were working on the same exact problem, but doing it their own way. And they both got the right answer, but that's the biggest goal is, can students explain their thinking and can they tell you how they got there? The implementation of this, you can see, is 85% of our teachers have been able to implement academic language and getting kids to explain their thinking in the classrooms. Next goal, we scroll down, is professional learning. So that's differentiated. We actually have, if you keep going down, we can see the whole picture there. I have two instructional coaches. This has been quite a gift. I used turnaround funds this last few years to have an additional instructional coach. Her name is Trish Rogers. She is specifically at our school to work with multilingual learners, which is so important because 50% of my population is English language learners. And having her there, in addition to having a regular instructional coach, has been huge. And you can kind of see our numbers there and what impact she's made. So I have had 300, I would say, coaching sessions this year with teachers, in addition to my own walkthroughs, but in addition to 189 hours of multilingual learning, coaching from the coach, and our literacy coach, who's our instructional coach. That was a little tricky this year because we got to share her with other schools due to COVID and due to doing some online learning, but we made the most of it and we got a lot of instructional teaching from her. Our next slide is shows you a graph of last year versus this year when it comes to our assessments and how we did. And you can see beginning of last year, we started off low in the mid-20s in language arts and math. You can see the differentiation there. This school year, we started off due to COVID in the single digits. It really affected us, but due to course corrections along the way, we've been able to improve that. If you move on to the next slide. I kind of already touched on a little bit of this. Our implementation challenges has been COVID and the fact that we had site-based learning dismissal in March. It really affected our kids. Our Title I students did not do well with dismissal learning. They need to be in school physically to learn and do their best. And with that this school year, we have been back. Ogden has been given us quite the blessing for that. But even with that, you can see there how many days of school that we've missed. It's a lot of days to miss school due to COVID. But if we go to the next slide, you can see of all of our action steps to reach our goal, we have successfully been able, despite all of the challenges, been able to stay on track and complete 18 goals, 18 of our action steps. And finally, want to end on a good note, are some of the positive things that this year we received an award at the beginning of the year from the state for our EL students. And our learning and the growth that we've made with them. And that's one of the many things that we're proud of. Any questions from you? I'm turning the time back over to you guys.
Thank you, Julie. I'm glad we were able to get you back and you weren't gone forever. So I do see a hand. Board Member Lear.
This is a general question. Are board members going to hear staff recommendations about leaving turnaround or staying in at the end or on each school? And I looked again at the materials, couldn't see those.
These are informational. The meeting will come later. These are just informational.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anybody else have questions? Okay, Julie, you just did so great. We didn't have any questions for you today. Thank you, and thank you for all the people who are with you.
All right, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Okay, we will go ahead and then move on to Utah International Charter School. I believe the presenter is Kathy Clark, and Angela Rowland will also be there. She's a board member, Kathy is.
Good morning. I am Kathy Clark, and I'm the vice chairman of the board at Utah International Charter School. As you can tell from our mission, we were founded specifically to meet the needs of English learners, especially refugees. We serve grades 6 through 12, and we are finishing our 8th year. Please advance the slide. Who are our students? Well, 90% of our students are learning English as a second language. They speak 32 home languages. 96% of our students qualify for free lunch. And they have been in a United States school for an average of 3.5 years. Half of them may not have had consistent schooling in the past. Many of them have been in refugee camps. And our students are motivated to graduate and attend college. Please advance the slide. There we are. We serve mostly new arrivals to the United States who are not well served by other schools. And as long as we are serving these students, we will have low standardized test scores and a low 4-year graduation rate. We weren't surprised when we qualified for turnaround, but we reject the term turnaround as implying that we were headed in the wrong direction and needed someone to turn us around. We have always worked with a consultant to help us improve our instruction and our school culture. But it was great to have a new team to work with at UEPC and to have the state pick up the cost. What has been our progress on school improvement goals? If you would advance to the next slide. Our goal of improving English speaking abilities of our students was very good. Our goal of increasing students' independent reading practice and to incentivize improvement in reading was good. The goal of improving learning in all content areas by increasing feedback to students, clarifying learning objectives, and improving the use of formative assessment was good. Our goal of improving staff communication with protocols for team meetings resulted in better meetings, and the progress was very good. Our goal of increasing parent engagement by initiating positive home visits or home phone calls was very good. Our goal to increase the impact of parent-teacher conferences by initiating academic parent nights, we had no progress on, and that was because of the COVID pandemic. We can go on to the next slide, please. What has been the impact of COVID-19 on our school improvement plan? Well, we used a hybrid model with students alternating days of live attendance. And as previously mentioned, we couldn't do academic parent nights at all. Our home visits had to be changed to video calls, but these turned out to be better in most cases. Students didn't do well practicing independent reading on their home day, so the reading program suffered, and we didn't implement one of the reading incentive programs. Our lowest level readers lost reading progress during the closure and made less progress than usual during hybrid learning. Students with functional literacy continued to improve nearly as much as they did in the previous year during the closure and during hybrid learning. Teachers made significant progress in improving their objectives and feedback to students, but with the school closure and the need to rethink teaching in the hybrid model, this slowed the progress down. Next slide, please. Other impacts of the pandemic on our school was our math growth suffered, especially during the closure. And the school closure increased dropouts somewhat, definitely for the class of 2020, and probably for future classes as well. We do have students that disappeared and others whose attendance is much worse. On the positive side, students' computer skills increased dramatically, and we will keep our one-to-one device program. WIDA growth and the other state test outcomes are unknown at this point, but the increase in student computer skills may help a little. Thank you for your attention to our presentation. I would like to introduce you to our Utah International School Principal, Angela Rowland, who is happy to answer any of your questions.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Angela, for being here. We do have one question right now. It's from Board Member Straight.
Yes, I saw lots of qualitative data, but I didn't see much quantitative data.
We watched, yeah, thank you. That's a great question. We watched the two previous presentations, and I realized I have saved all my quantitative data for the big meeting at the end of June. Partly because I don't have some, I'm really wanting to get, I want the WIDA results from this year. You know, I don't have any data from last year. We've only been in turnaround. This is our second year. And so we don't have I could have done, there is some data that I could have shown you and I didn't. I was worried about the time. Yes, I was it was a very big overview. I was worried about the time limit. And so I didn't include slides of the reading growth improvement or the math growth decline and things like that. So I apologize for that.
Thank you.
But I will have that for the 29th.
All right.
So, Ms. Rowland, I think it's great because we do want an overarching on our information, and then when you do go to that larger meeting, you'll probably want some of that. So, yes, thank you.
I have a lot of it. So
yeah, no, I love the overarching as well. So that there's different pieces. Board Member Moss.
Just a very quick comment. I just wanted to say thanks. I was able to visit the school and to watch some of these refugee kids, Somali, Congolese, Vietnamese, Nepalese, working through math problems with a Rwandan teacher who himself was a longtime refugee. It's just amazing work they're doing with kids that have unique challenges. So I look forward to seeing the additional report next month.
Board Member Moss, thank you so much for that insight. Okay, I don't see any other questions, Kathy or Angela. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting us. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, we will move on to Holt Elementary. The presenter will be John Robinson from Davis School District. He's the board president. And there will be Daryl and John, the elementary director and the principal. So, John?
Good morning. I am Logan Toon, assistant superintendent, not John Robinson.
Like John.
I don't look like John, nor do I sound much like him. And he will be joining us shortly. We're a little bit ahead of our schedule here.
Would you like us to try something else, or
if the school that follows us is ready? I mean, we can move on with the presentation as it is, or we can have the other school go next if they're prepared. We were planning on an 11:15 start time.
Okay, let's just look and see. Tracy, do you know if Susan Hara is ready at Paradise?
I do know for Paradise Canyon, we have a video, and then I will also scroll and see if Susan is going to be able to join us. That wasn't clear. She was going to try her best, but she was struggling with some internet connectivity. So we'll queue up that video and check and see if Susan's here.
Okay, so what we're going to do, Logan, is we'll go ahead and go to Paradise Canyon if they are ready. If not, we'll come back to you.
Okay, I'll be ready to go if we need to go right away.
Okay, thank you, Logan.
No problem.
Tracy, have you checked with Susan? I keep calling her Sarah. Is Amy Mitchell here?
I don't see their names yet, and we are early.
Okay, then why don't we go back to Davis School District, and we'll go ahead and go back to the Holt Elementary, and we'll go ahead and start with Logan.
Great, thank you. With me today, again, I'm Logan Toon, Assistant Superintendent with the Davis School District. With me today is Principal Daryl Flukiger, of Holt Elementary School. Also, John Sheffield, who is our elementary school director administrator, and Miss Ruth Ann Keller, who is also, she'll be replacing Mr. Sheffield, who'll be retiring this coming year. I want to first just commend Principal Flukiger for the work that's been done so far in a kind of an interrupted and sporadic type of an implementation year for the first planning cycle, as well as the first sort of implementation year, as we've been interrupted throughout the process of our initial. We're in cohort 4 at Holt Elementary School, which means we were identified at the end of based on 2019 test data, notified and began the planning cycle right at the beginning of the pandemic closure, and have pursued that through our evaluation vendors relationships with Innovations, and come up with a completed plan that is now being presented to the state board for approval this year. If you could go to the next slide for us. You'll see the turnaround goals here, and I won't read those because they're made available to you as board members, but we have language arts goals, one for EL students and one for economically disadvantaged students. That's EDA on that slide. And then we have an improvement goal for parent engagement and an improvement goal for student attendance. All 4 of those we believe will have a general effect on academic outcomes across the curriculum. If you could go to the next slide, please. As is noted in these slides, these goals have yet to be formally approved by the state board, and that's one of the things we're anticipating here. And we've begun our initial work with our Catapult Learning, who's our implementation vendor. And so we're looking now at kind of some of the changes that have been made in the past couple of years, not necessarily formally part of the turnaround process as we're launching that right now, but just wanted to make the board aware of some of these changes, including tutors, change in school administration that was initiated at the district level, and Principal Flukiger there, who will be starting his 2nd year in the upcoming school year. And they've adjusted the master schedule at the school to include power hour, focus on reading, literacy instruction to increase the number of minutes of instruction in those areas, collaborative teams of teachers to help develop each other and to give access points to our vendor partners as well as the behavior plan, which will increase access. And I'll introduce President John Robison. They're a little ahead of schedule.
Oh, I was in Logan's office.
Oh, I didn't know you were in there. I'm sorry.
We are so ahead. It's a miracle.
And so then the next slide, if you could just go to the next one, and then we'll let President Robison take the remainder of the time that we have. And then Principal Flukiger is available for comments and questions. We're just looking again, we don't have a formal progress report at this point because we're initiating the process as a cohort 4 school. So, President, we just basically took him through the goals. I apologize for the confusion.
No, I thought, I didn't know where Logan was. I thought he was in the bathroom and I didn't want to disturb him. So sorry about that. So Laura, I see Laura. I don't know who else is on here, but first of all, Laura, I want to thank you for all the work you do on behalf of us, as well as Brent Strait. We're in good hands up here in the north with these 2 board members.
Thank you, President.
As I have spent some time, and certainly this has been good, the way that the state board has set this up to engage a board president, because it's not that we don't care about this stuff, but there's a lot of things that we do, and sometimes we don't dive deep enough into some of the programs that are going on or some of the processes. So for me, this has been a great opportunity to learn more about the process that we're involved in. And the one thing that stands out to me is, as I've talked with Principal Flukiger and also Dr. Toon, is our desire to not cross the finish line and have a kind of a bill of good health, but to go about this in a way that allows us to have a heavy impact, not just a short-term impact, but a long-term impact on the students in Holt Elementary. That's a desire that we all share. And to do that, as these good people have helped me gain a better understanding, to me, a key thing from my perspective as a board member that I would like to share is the importance of the funding. To not, again, I'm not insinuating this is your perspective, but hopefully as we present more of the plan that has been put together, that you'll have a good understanding of our desire to have this be very impactful on these young people and the teachers. So there's a long-term benefit from this, and not just necessarily how do we get to the point where we're no longer classified as a turnaround school? How can we, for years to come, have a chance to really make an impact so that not only teachers today in this school, but teachers in the future as they come in, that transition of being a new teacher, that they learn what our teachers are going to be learning, what our administrators are going to be learning, what we learn as a district. So I have full confidence in our staff under the direction of Dr. Toon. There's never anything that this man does that he's not in 100% and way ahead of where other people might be. As our principal has great experience in a previous school, previous experience in relationship to some opportunities that he has had, and he's proven as an educator, as an administrator, I should say, in our district, he's the right guy in the right place. So my point really, I guess the emphasis of what I'd say is as you look at the goals are approved, we hope, and we move forward. I hope, and I know you will, that you'll keep in mind the desire that we have to make this not a short-term impact, but a long-term impact. I appreciate what you're doing and your support of this. Thank you.
Thank you, President. So if you slide into the next display slide there, it'll kind of recap. Let's actually go to the next one. I think we've addressed some of those things. This is one of the things that we're looking toward on the heels of President Robison's direction and hope there is that as we move forward, this interrupted year of implementation, our hope would be that we'd be able to follow this process with a full third year of funding implementation so that we can lead to a truly sustainable model. So the timelines are a little goofy. We'll work with Dr. Lang and his team to do what we can to make sure that happens. But our hope would be to have the full improvement process despite the COVID interruption. And so that's kind of the formal presentation from from our end. And so we open up for questions and comments, and hopefully involve Principal Flukiger in responding to those questions as well.
Thank you, President Robinson, and also Logan. Are there any questions that you have? I don't see any questions at this time for any of you. I know that you'll be getting further in depth on this. And I also, it's been interesting because every presentation said, the one thing we couldn't do was parent engagement meetings. So, you know, I did appreciate that Granite tried to do those online this last year. So that was kind of an interesting piece. Okay, I don't see
in
any.
The absence,
yes.
Ms. Dunlap, in the absence of questions, can I just ask Principal Flukiger to jump on and make a note of anything that we may have missed or that he needs to add to the conversation?
That would be acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. We really appreciate that. It's been great hearing some of those past presentations to hear of how they've handled, obviously, with COVID and all that, knowing that the impact of having our students at school is so vital for us, because closing the gap, we need them here. And we know that the online learning and that was a challenge presented to us. Just to echo a little bit of what President Robinson and Dr. Toon had said, just the idea of how COVID's affected this in our implementation year, that it took 2 years rather than 1. And the sustainability in my mind is going to be the key of this, because not how do we just exit turnaround, but how do we create a trajectory that's ongoing and climbing and getting better and better every year with the resources made available to us by the state. So I hope that's something that's considered as we move forward, is how do we make up for that year that's kind of been left there, so that we can make sure that children are being successful and that we're training our teachers that it's a sustainable trajectory in the future to not only exit turnaround, but to be some of the model schools that the state's got as we move forward.
Thank you, Daryl. I think that that'll be some questions to ask Tracy and her team moving forward about the continuation of funding and implementation. So thank you. Thank you so much for taking your time to be with us today. Okay, we will go ahead and move on to our last school. I still think we're a little bit ahead of time, but we'll see if they are available. It would be Principal Hara, the District Director Mitch, and District Director Amy Mitchell. Are they here?
Yes, I'm here, Laura.
Hello, Susan. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Yeah. Is Director Mitchell also going to be with you, or is it just going to be you today?
Let me see your face. She's here, and so is Eliza Maravilla, our Title I coordinator. And I think you have this pre-recorded from our board member, Becky Dunn.
I think we do, Becky Dunn. So do you want us to just start the presentation then, Susan?
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Becky Dunn, and I'm a board member in the Washington County School District. I first off want to just say thank you for allowing us this time to present to the state board, and I'm excited to present on Paradise Canyon Elementary's turnaround process. So you can see from the chart below our current problem statements, and we will use those to help form our SMART goals for domains 3 and 4 in the upcoming school improvement plan. Just want to quickly point out a couple of things. In number 1, we're going to be focusing on the gap between our MathRise proficiency numbers and the district's MathRise proficiency. On number 3, we're going to be focusing on our historical behavioral challenges. For number 2 and number 4, we've already embedded those in our professional learning plan for next year, and you'll see an example of that on the next slide. So we are currently in the process of collaborating with the Utah Education Policy Center to address those problem statements from the previous slide and set SMART goals. An example of this is the K-5 down below. It says 75% of all students at Paradise Canyon Elementary will make typical or above growth on Acadience measures by the end of the year. Now, Paradise Canyon has had a lot of successes We are excited about Acadience, and it's been very rewarding this month to see the impressive gains in both growth and proficiency in our students. We also are anxiously awaiting our RISE scores and anticipate that we'll see the growth in those areas as well. In January, we were awarded the Utah School of Excellence for teaching English to our English language learners. This is based off of WIDA scores, and that was a great privilege. Now, this last one I'm really excited about. We received the National Dual Immersion School Award from the International Spanish Academy and the Embassy of Spain for being the best dual immersion elementary school in the US and Canada. Now, they only choose one school from both countries, US and Canada, and Paradise Canyon was awarded the best dual immersion elementary school. It's pretty remarkable. Now, Paradise Canyon has had its own challenges. When we began this journey about 2 years ago, we as a board, district administration, and local school administration have spent countless hours together figuring out what the challenges are at the school and trying to make changes to help better the school. We have spent numerous hours in parent meetings with community groups trying to help them understand the changes and things that we were doing to help make the school better. A few of the changes we have made are the following. We changed the school name, we changed the mascot and the school colors. We appointed a new principal, and along with that, new faculty came to the elementary school. We also did a boundary change where we brought in new students from another school to Paradise Canyon. And we worked really hard to help integrate those students into our school and help them feel like they had a place and that they belonged. We recently just finished a remodel of the building, and it looks beautiful. We have and are continuing to set new and rigorous goals. Now, this year has been a little crazy for everyone with the pandemic, and we have faced challenges at our school, like other schools, regarding face masks and the challenges that come along with those. But overall, our district has been able to stay in school and have in-person learning 5 days a week for this entire year. And that has been a remarkable blessing and asset to our school. We have had kids in the building and in-person learning happening 5 days a week. We are super grateful for that. We look forward to setting our goals for the upcoming school year and the successes that will come to Paradise Canyon in the future. Thank you for this opportunity.
Sarah or Amy, do you have something else other than her presentation for us today?
I would just say that it's so far been a wonderful journey. The last year working with innovations and also now the U of U Policy Center, we're already learning so much from them and look forward to the new goals that we're setting.
Thank you. Director Mitchell, do you have anything else?
Sure. Do you mind muting? Sorry, there's two of us together here. I would like to just say thank you to our wonderful board who is so supportive from the state level as well as our local board and other district administrators. But we really believe it's Principal Hera and her site coordinator, Elisa Maravilla, who's also here, who just have dug in and done the hard work. And we're just grateful for their dedication. Our Principal Hera is one of our principal mentors, our principal leaders, and we feel like this is going to be a model for a turnaround program. We're just really proud of the things that are happening at Paradise Canyon.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions from board members?
And her site coordinator, Elisa Maravilla, who's also here, who just done the hard work. And we're just,
okay, did you mute it back again? Thank you, Amy. Do we have any questions for Paradise Canyon Elementary representatives? Okay, it looks like we don't today have any questions. Thank you so much for coming on and making this presentation, and for Board Member Dunn for recording that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay,